Hello and welcome to Dee's Meteor World. Today we'll be doing episode 13 in my Inuyasha review series, The Mystery of the New Moon and the Black-Haired Inuyasha. If you haven't seen the episode, as always, the episode is down in the link below and you can watch it first and then see my opinions on it. So this is like an episode that kind of is character development for Inuyasha and Kagome's relationship, but also Inuyasha himself, and we learn a little bit more about him and the fact that basically every month when there's no moon, he becomes human. And what that means is that he loses his silverish hair, his eyes become black, his hair becomes black, and he has human senses and smells, and he's all human. And he's really adorable human. He's adorable as both ways, but it's really adorable to see him as a human. And also the fact that Kagome and Inuyasha is sort of they're kind of developing a relationship, I guess. Not a romantic, I wouldn't say so much romantic as actually developing a friendship, more so. Like, I mean, they still do their little arguing and whatnot, but this episode did deal with trust a little bit and whether or not, like Inuyasha says, I don't trust anyone, but he kind of does trust Kagome. You can tell it by his actions. This is a really good episode. The whole the whole thing was kind of based on them going to this temple and they help this girl out and say, like, oh, there's demons around, and they spider head demons as they call them, and Kagome didn't know that Inuyasha was going to become human, and she actually blames herself later on. She was like, this is all my fault, even though she couldn't have known. It is in a way, in a roundabout way, like, oh yeah, you did insist that you stay there. You couldn't really see, you couldn't take a hint, but Inuyasha always has kind of an attitude all the time, so it's hard to read Inuyasha sometimes in that way. Like, how would she have known that he becomes human, every month? And Myoga knows that Inuyasha becomes human, but the funny thing about that, when Myoga explains everything, he's like, he knows instantly. Like, he didn't know that Inuyasha becomes human that night, but he actually like knew how Inuyasha, like why Inuyasha became human that night, because he's like, oh. She's like, what happened? And he's like, well, every night, every month, or whatever, half demons become human. And he was like, why didn't you tell me? I'm like, well, you seem to have known quickly. You explained it to everybody. So, and the other thing I was thinking is that as long as Myoga has allegedly known Inuyasha, how did he not know that Inuyasha becomes human that day? He must not see Inuyasha as much as we think. I guess Myoga's been in the last couple episodes, actually. The most in a row, probably, but I couldn't have think, I'm like, how do you not know then? And Inuyasha actually admits the reason he didn't tell them was because he knew that particularly Myoga, would run off. And I found that an interesting thing for him to say because, Inuyasha kind of comes off as this loner, but in reality he doesn't actually want to be alone. He didn't want to tell Myoga because he knew he would leave. And, Kagome's offended by this because she thinks, well, duh. What about me? I've always, she didn't say this, but it's true. She's always stood by Inuyasha. She wanted to leave him and stuff. But Inuyasha admits he doesn't trust anyone. So it's an interesting conversation they're having. Interesting way we find out about Inuyasha being human and stuff. I like that the Tenseiga still puts in work. Even when Inuyasha can't transform it, it still protects Kagome, protects Kagome. Even has she uses the shield, and that protects her. And then they even use the sword and throw it through the door. That also stops the demon from coming in, which is pretty cool, actually. The sword can do a multitude of things. Inuyasha, after he becomes human, they have to go back and get the jewel shards because Kagome forgot them. Of course. That's why I think Inuyasha sort of should hold the jewel shards. I mean, I could get sort of why Kagome holds them because she can sense jewel shards and whatnot. But when it comes to someone being in danger, Inuyasha's less likely to lose them. So I don't know. I guess that doesn't change though in the show. Pretty much Kagome always holds the jewel shards for some reason. Kagome gets pissed off at Inuyasha for not telling her, but he goes back, he tries to get the jewel shards and stuff back. He gets poisoned by the spider heads, which, if he was half demon, this would have been no problem. Which I think was kind of cool, but it's the fact that he's human, so he gets poisoned, and then him and Kagome essentially have a moment together, which is sweet. He tells her like, he asked, well, for starters, he asked to send her lie in her lap, which is really very unlike Inuyasha. In fact, this might be the only time in the series he's done that. He did something like that where he wasn't embarrassed. Because one thing about Inuyasha Kagome, if you watch the show and you know they sort of become a couple, is that there are very few public displays of affection, or even affection, not even public, just affection in general. So him asking to send her lap seemed really almost sensual in a way for those two. And he wasn't even embarrassed, but that was because he was poisoned. And he admits, that he doesn't mind how she smells, or he lied about her smell. Unless I missed it, I don't think we saw that conversation. Like, when did he say she didn't smell good? That must have been like, on the sidelines, like when the audience, wasn't there. That's what I'm getting out of it. Cause I mean, she says Inuyasha a couple times actually. Well, is it once or twice? And she helps him out, and they kind of help each other out, and you sort of see this bond between them as they two sort of bring together this friendship. And the friendship is a big part of Inuyasha in general. Is trusting people, getting to know people, knowing what they want and won't do, and how important that is for you to understand that before you actually trust someone or be close to someone or think you're close to someone. I think that's pretty much all my notes. Inuyasha becoming half demon again was really cool. The way they sort of do it. They do it it's kind of cool. It's just the way he's confident enough to know that, the demon was getting, he was like, okay, go ahead, I'm about to turn half demon right now. And he sliced him up. I was like, gee. I love that Inuyasha asked Kagome, on my final notes, he's like, he saw that she cried for him, and it's clear that Inuyasha probably has never had someone cry for him, at least that he's aware of. And it's actually a really kind of bittersweet moment, because that's a sad thought, and he never felt that, someone cared enough to cry for him when he was in danger or something like that. So I find that really interesting. I guess we'll see where else it goes. Until next time, see you later.